What's good? It's your boy Fanon. All right, man, I'm going to do a video that should probably not be done until the end of the year, but I'm going to do it ahead of time, man, because I see things forming around Vasyl Lomachenko where he might receive an accolade this year for the fights that he has this year that he received last year, and that's Fight of the Year. But this time he could actually deserve it. And that's just looking at all of the bouts that are starting to surround him by guys that are either Hall of Fame, on their downside, but no easy out Hall of Fame type guys, prime champions in the same weight division as him, and also young guys who are highly talented on their way up, and they're all centered around fighting him. And if he's actually able to beat two or three or, all three of these guys in the same year, then without a doubt, it's going to be very difficult for anybody else to have a better year than Vasyl Lomachenko would have if he was able to pull that off. Now, you can see the three people that I'm talking about here are Manny Pacquiao, Jorge Linares, and Gervonta Davis. So I'll go through that and then talk about this Linares fight and the likelihood of these things happening and what that would mean for Vasyl Lomachenko. And now, before I do that, I'm definitely going to have a live stream today. I hope that you'll accept my invitation and attend the live stream. Trying to get as many people as possible onto the live stream on a regular basis so that we can have real-time discussions about subjects like this and others. And the best way to do that is through the live streams. And the best way to know about the live stream is to subscribe and hit the bell icon so that you can be notified of when they happen. Now, that said, last year, leading into this year, also, well, let me start first because this was going to be the title of it. Robert Garcia, and this is what made me start thinking about this. Robert Garcia talked about the fact that he favors Vasyl Lomachenko to beat Jorge Linares, but that Jorge Linares is something that is new for Vasyl Lomachenko that he hasn't faced probably since the Orlando Salido fight, and that is somebody that is his size, that is the same size as him or longer and as strong, who has good speed, has a lot of championship experience, and I believe also somebody that has something to lose. Also somebody that's represented by another promoter. This is me speaking now, and somebody that has something to lose. Somebody that's not just going to go in there and lay down because, why take it? I have my own reasons, my own beliefs as to why I think some certain people have, quit in fights versus Vasyl Lomachenko. And I think it has a lot to do with them being tremendously overmatched and slightly underpaid. And they take that option. If they had something that was really that they had to lose, like their belts, and they were also had bigger paydays ahead for them, and they weren't extremely overmatched, I don't think that you would have seen that, what you saw last year. Now, the three fights that took place last year for Vasyl Lomachenko, just to go through them, were Guillermo Rigondeaux, a guy that is 122 pounds, fought 2 times in a year. Miguel Mariaga, who's like Guillermo Rigondeaux, never fought at 126 pounds before. And then Jason Sosa. Jason Sosa, who was coming off of a draw against a guy that Lomachenko beat in Nicholas Walters, and who I just think is I want to say he's a step above a journeyman, but that's pretty much what Jason Sosa is. Jason Sosa subsequently lost to a very over the hill, if not completely shot, Yuriokas Gamboa. So there's nothing. I mean, I couldn't be any more vocal last year in saying that I did not believe that Vasyl Lomachenko deserved Fight of the Year off of those fights. But if you fast forward to the year 2018, and he has the type of fights that are being that have been lined up for him this year, and he wins these, without a doubt, it's going to be very difficult for anybody else to make an argument that they can fight better competition in the span of 2018. Not because there aren't better fights that could happen. I can name those circumstances where they could happen. For example, Errol Spence Jr. in the 147 pounds. That could happen. Usyk in the cruiserweight division. The only problem with Usyk is that some of the fights that he had to get the cruiserweight title occurred last year, and only 2 of them would have happened this year. The 100, I think if I didn't say it already, the 147-pound division, the problem is that Errol Spence and Keith Thurman and Terrence Crawford and Mikey Garcia, Danny Garcia, they all have enough where they fought one another, that there's enough talent in that division where one of them could come out, in my opinion, being fighter of the year. But the problem is that fight that Keith Thurman is sitting on belts, right? You know, got him sitting square on him, acting like he doesn't want to fight. And there's a significant chance, I believe there's a chance he might not fight at all in 2018. And if he does fight in 2018, you know, it's going to be against somebody who is, you know, maybe in the top 10, the lower portion of the top 10, might be a top 15 fighter for the WBA or the WBC. So that's not a likely scenario where that somebody like Errol Spence Jr. is going to be able to fight for the WBA and the WBC belt against a Keith Thurman. You also have Danny Garcia and Sean Porter wanting to fight, not having it been ordered for the 2 of them to fight, but I don't know really if Danny Garcia wants that. But even that would be the case of 1 fight. I think it'd be very difficult to get 3 out of that, the way that they're going about it. So, and then of course at heavyweight, I mean, that's right there for the taking. That's right there for the taking for Anthony Joshua or Deontay Wilder, fighter of the year. It's right there for him. But, you know, we have to deal with Eddie Hearn and Anthony Joshua. And I'm not even going to fake for a second that it's the Deontay Wilder side that doesn't want that bout. It's clearly Anthony Joshua and Eddie Hearn that do not want that. They want to fight Joseph Parker, then they want to fight Povetkin, right? Or they'll fight whoever it is after that, right? And, you know, so the most dangerous opposition, the most wanted fight in the heavyweight division more than likely will not happen. So I don't see the fighter of the year coming out of coming out of the heavyweight division. The 168-pound division, there's a lot of parity in the 168-pound division between David Benavidez, Gilberto Ramirez, Khalid Plant, George Groves. The winner of the World Boxing Super Series, I don't believe will have fought the best guys at 168 pounds. Because for me, outside of the winner, and even above the winner of the 168-pound title at the World Boxing Super Series, the 3 168, or at least 2 for sure, 168-pounders outside of that, in David Benavidez, the WBC champ, and Gilberto Ramirez, who I do believe is I think he's the WBO champ, but you know how we do it. We're going to actually check that real fast. I do believe that Gilberto Ramirez is the 100 and he's the WBO champ. And then you've got James DeGale as the IBF champ. And honestly, man, James DeGale looks all but shot. And then George Groves. So there's a lot of parity going on in there in 168 pounds. At middleweight, same thing. You could get that. You could get all of those guys to fight one another. But you have one guy holding all the belts, except for 2 guys that hold all the belts, Gennady Golovkin and Billy Joe Saunders. But, you've got the guy running the division with all the belts in the division trying to fight, blown up welterweights. And, the guy's trying to avoid fighting the best fighters so much so that he can't even get a fight approved by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. I mean, he's on a serious bum. When you have the guy that holds 3 of the major championship belts and the top secondary belt in the IBO, and he's out bum hunting. There's no way that anybody out there like a Jamal Charlo or Daniel Jacobs are going to be able to get their hands on the belts or get enough marquee fights at 160 pounds to make that happen. Now, another guy that I think could make an argument for it, and where it could happen, but I don't think that they would get it because of the politics, is at 154 pounds. And that, at 154 pounds, being, Jared Hurd, who now holds 2 of the belts, and he could very well be looking for a showdown against Jermell Charlo. Now, if Jared Hurd were able to beat Jermell Charlo, and he walked out holding, 3 of the major belts, and the only one out there being the WBO belt, he could be in the running for it. I don't think anybody's in the running for it at light welterweight. Danny Garcia could have if he stayed down there at 135 pounds. And then, the stuff underneath there, the straw weights, lightweight, flyweight, super flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight, I just don't see that. I don't see that happening out of there, with the outside possibility being, maybe Leo Santa Cruz. If Leo Santa Cruz beat, I don't know, man, got in there and beat Gary Russell Jr. after Gary Russell beats, if Gary Russell beats Jojo Diaz when they fight in May. But that's not going to be the 3 fights. Like, you have the opportunity, a realistic opportunity for these fights to be made with Vasyl Lomachenko. Because right now, Vasyl Lomachenko, it is April. In May, he could at least get 2 of these fights in. And a win over Jorge Linares and a win over Manny Pacquiao in towards the September time frame, right? And then if you could catch Gervonta Davis in December, if he could get through those fights, and I know that time frame might be a little tight, but 2 of those 3 fights, that's major. That's major. Beating Jorge Linares, and then beating a Gervonta Davis, moving up from 130 to 135. Or the even better route would be, now the reason that I put Gervonta Davis out here is because, I put him out there because Floyd Mayweather already said, and Bob Arum confirmed, that they were in talks for making that fight between Gervonta Davis and Vasyl Lomachenko next. Also, that Manny Pacquiao's fighting Lucas Matisse, and he said that he next wants to fight Vasyl Lomachenko. So these options, all of these guys are, if Tank Davis didn't say it himself, his promoter said it. Manny Pacquiao has said it himself. Jorge Linares is in the ring, is already set to fight him, and they went out of their way to make that fight happen. So this year for Vasyl Lomachenko is not going to be, I don't believe it's going to be anything like last year. Now, and I want to say this now, before, right, these fights start coming around and the bandwagon crew starts jumping on stuff, right? Because pretty soon this fight against, when is this fight? This fight with Jorge Linares is coming up on May 12th, right? So it's April. So in about 2 weeks, we should start hearing how, Vasyl Lomachenko is the greatest fighter in the history of the world. How nobody's ever done what he's done before. How he's reinventing boxing angles, and he's, all of that stuff that goes around with the promotion of Vasyl Lomachenko that will inevitably get on my nerves. Get on my nerves and make me start saying a bunch of stuff that would make you believe that I don't like Vasyl Lomachenko. right? I like Vasyl Lomachenko. I like Vasyl Lomachenko the person. I like Vasyl Lomachenko the fighter. There's absolutely nothing that I've seen, that I've heard out of the mouth from Vasyl Lomachenko that I don't, that would make me think that he's not a real fighter. Right now, there was a thing about him rematching what's his name, Orlando Salido, and saying that he's past Orlando Salido at this point in his career. That's probably the only thing that I can say about Vasyl Lomachenko, where I heard something where I didn't really think, I don't like where he's coming from on that. And my take on something like that is, look, man, whenever if you watch somebody long enough and you listen to enough things that they say, if you agree with everything that person says, there's a significant chance that you are what they call a fanboy. There's nobody is perfect, and people are going to take viewpoints that you disagree with, right? Even if you talk about like if you have boxing fans and you're not always if you always disagree with somebody, always. It's because there are some people that come to my channel that I guarantee you every single solitary time I have ever had an interaction with them, they have disagreed. And while I will admit that I am far from 100% accurate in what I believe will happen, in my restatements of what have happened, or my logical conclusions, or my opinions about what will happen or why something did happen. Now, while I'm far from 100%, I'm also far from 50%. I'm also far from 0%. Right? So if you're just disagreeing with me every single solitary time, then you just want to disagree. So as far as Vasyl Lomachenko goes, I've seen a few things. Maybe the one thing that stood out to me was Orlando Salido. But as far as what he's been able to do in the ring, the dude can clearly fight, man. The dude can clearly fight. You don't come up with 2 Olympic gold medals. You don't have 11 title fights in 11 fights and only lose 1 if you don't know how to fight. That's just not possible, man. Similar to the way that the same thing applies to Deontay Wilder. There's no way that you win an Olympic bronze medal, you win a heavyweight championship, you knock out 30, you fight 40 times, you're 40-0, and you've knocked out 39. You fought 39 guys, and you've knocked all 39 guys out that you fought. You got one. You went the distance. You go to the distance one time, and the second time you fight the guy, you knock him out. There's no way that you do that without being a very, very good fighter. Just some things are just objective facts. I guess that's not an objective fact, but whether he's a good fighter or not. However, you can say that the dude is a highly, highly successful fighter, and he has to know what he's doing in a boxing ring. So the same thing that I would say about Deontay Wilder, I have to say about Vasyl Lomachenko, because it's obviously the truth. So and as much as I would say last year that I don't believe that Terrence Crawford should have been the fighter of the year, the consensus fighter of the year, because nobody else did something comparable to what he did. Nobody. Now you can point holes in it and say, who was Julius Ndungo? Julius, the last guy he fought and won the belts off of was a guy that, beat a Trinovsky, I think his name is, in Russia, and then he beat a faded Ricky Burns, and then he gets in the ring with Terrence Crawford, and he's just not on Terrence Crawford's level. That's fair, right? But still, you could say the same thing about for Vasyl Lomachenko about Jason Sosa, and you can say the same thing about Miguel Mariaga for sure, and you can say that and Vasyl Lomachenko himself said that Guillermo Rigondeaux's not even in his own, it's not even in his weight class. That's like a 175 pounder, a slick basically a James DeGale, right? Fighting at 175 for most of his career, moving up to fight Deontay Wilder or some major heavyweight. And that's just not a realistic a small 122 pounder moving up 2 weight classes to fight a big 130. You know, it is what it is. But if Vasyl Lomachenko is able to do this, and I think that he could pull this off, I definitely favor him over Linares. I would favor him over Gervonta Davis, and I would favor him over Manny Pacquiao. But they're not going to be easy fights. He's going to get tested. He's going to get cut. He's going to get bruised. And if he's able to pull it off, you know, it would be the year of Lomachenko. And with that, I'm out. Peace.